Hey everyone. So we've had a lot of requests for running Rachel from an Android tablet. So I'm going to go ahead and do just a real quick introduction to running Rachel as a server on your Android tablet. And I'm going to do that by using one of these Android mini PCs. I chose this one. It's a quad-core mini PC. I think it's got 2 gigabytes of RAM, an SD card slot, a couple of USB ports, and what's nice about this one is it actually has a LAN port, so you're going to want to connect this to a router. At some point, if you build a larger network, you can also use this off the internal Wi-Fi. It's got HDMI, which is nice. More importantly, for a lot of people, it's got the old audio-video cable. And so that's the yellow cable that a lot of people are used to seeing on some of the older TVs. If you ever want to hook this up and actually look at what's going on, the Android will make it a little easier to edit the files. And so this is the other end of that cord, and it plugs in, and it's got all of these regular old hookups. The last thing that's nice about this Android box is the power here. This isn't a micro SD. And micro SD is great for the Raspberry Pi, and it's a very universal charger, but we have gotten reports of the chargers getting stolen so people can charge their phones with it. So this power port will only work for this device. You can decide whether that's something you want or you don't want. What I'm starting with here is a 32 gigabyte version of Rachel. Now this is actually Rachel WAMP, and that stands for Windows, Apache, MySQL, PHP. That's the download of the file. It's the exact same as the USB version of Windows. We're only going to use part of it. And I'm actually using a micro SD card here. So this is a 32 gigabyte micro SD card. And that can run off this tablet, which only accepts micro SD cards. If you're running from this box, it actually will take a full-size SD card. So you might find something that's got a little higher speed. And now I'm just going to put this back into its adapter here. And I will put this in the computer so you can see exactly what we're looking at here. So I plugged that in, give it a minute to adjust. These files are just something that comes on the SD card. I wouldn't really worry about it. And then when you look at the actual Rachel files, all we've got here is the www folder. And so this is where all the content really resides. And actually in here, what we've added is this thing called the Spider SQL export. And that's what runs your search. And that'll be subject to another video. I'm just going to get this set up once without actually using the search functionality. So I'm going to pop this card back out, and I'm going to slide it into my Android mini PC here. And I think this is about 90 bucks, so it's a far more powerful device than the Pi. It's also something that's a little more user friendly, but it doesn't have kind of the replaceable parts, and there's a lot of things that will require configuration that we don't have to do with the Pi right now. So I've already laid out a power cord. I'm just going to plug the power cord in. I'm going to plug the HDMI cord in, and this thing will start to boot up as soon as we've plugged the power cord in, and the monitor will kick up. What's nice about these is I'm just going to connect a mouse as well, and so you'll see we're booting up here quite nicely, and we'll just give it a second. They call these TV boxes. They're designed to mimic kind of an Apple TV or a Roku, and they actually do a really good job of that, but we're going to use this as a Rachel server. And so this will be just like your Raspberry Pi server. We'll be creating a Wi-Fi network. If you want to get used to kind of how you've always seen Android, that's called Basic Launcher. There's also a TV version of the launcher that has larger icons. I'm going to go with the Basic Launcher because that'll be more familiar to the tablet environment that most people are used to operating under. So this is just first time I'm booting it up, so it's kind of giving me the intro. I'm going to need to connect it to Wi-Fi to download some apps. So I turn my Wi-Fi on, and it's connecting. So I've booted this up once before, so it's connected to my local device. I will go back, and then I'm going to go head straight to the Play Store. So unfortunately, one of the apps that we're going to use in this demo costs $3, which I don't think is a big deal, but it does require the license to be checked with the store. So the first time you set this up, it needs to have internet access. And if you are to ever totally reformat the device, you would need to get internet access again. I'm working with a developer to try and get an offline version that won't have that check. But if you set this up once and you give it internet access, you shouldn't ever have to delete it again, unless for some reason someone goes through and really resets all the settings. So we'll go ahead with this right now. What we're looking for is two apps, the first of which is called BitWeb Server, and I got the full version here. Yours will say like $2.99, I think. I've already purchased it, so I can just install it, which I'll do now. And then while that's downloading, I'm going to grab the next app that we need. And the next app that we need is called Wi-Fi Access Point, and this is a free app. And there's a plethora of things that do this. I've been pretty happy with these two. I haven't tried them all, so if someone's got a better idea, please feel free to leave it in the comments or shoot us an email at info@worldpossible.org. So these two apps will get installed pretty quickly here. And then I'm going to go back home. I'm just going to set this as always for now. And so this is kind of, your apps may be somewhere else. But I guess these haven't quite finished downloading yet. So we'll give that a second here because we'll see them pop up in a second. Just going to check at the store. Going back to see. Oops. One too many clicks there. So this is still downloading a little bit. My internet's a little slow. Hopefully I'm seeding some Rachel downloads for everyone out there. But when this finishes, it'll install and we'll get going. So again, this is working with any of the Rachel downloads that are not the image for the Raspberry Pi. So that's a totally separate download that includes the operating system for the Raspberry Pi. Everything else we work with is this basic download package of all the content. So it looks like we're making progress. That's installing. And I'll go back to where we were. Still nothing, so give it a chance just to refresh here. You can see that we're still downloading, or installing, excuse me. So hopefully I can cut some of this out of the video. I know this is a little boring to watch, but you're going to get the full experience of how long this should take on one of these faster devices here. And hopefully we'll be done with this first part within another 2 or 3 minutes. So what we'll be doing is we'll be creating a server that everyone can use and access. The search function will not yet work. That'll be subject to part 2 of the video. It's a little more complicated. So this is BitWeb Server, and it has checked. I don't know if you can tell, it says this app is licensed. So the first time I start this up, it will have checked to see if this is a licensed app. And I'm trying to focus in on that, but you might have gotten a glimpse of it. Okay, so for the first time it is being configured. This will take just a second here. And this is actually taking a little bit longer than the first time I set this up. I don't have a great explanation as to why. This is a pretty snappy device and ultra low cost, really. It's a nice piece of hardware to have to run your server off of. So we're just sitting here still. It's good to know that our Wi-Fi access point has been installed also. Okay, so BitWeb Server is ready to go. All you're going to need to do is come up here to the settings. And for this first step, all we're going to do is LightTPD. That's a web server. It's used in place of Apache. Without rooting your device, you have to keep the port number at 8080, and I'll show you how that comes into play. This is also deceiving. This says SD card, and on any Android device, whether it's your phone, your tablet, or whatever, this will say SD card. That doesn't really mean the SD card. I know it's awful, but that's your internal SD card, which is the pre-installed storage, not the SD card on the outside. So we need to get to the external SD card. So I've gone up, and then here it's XSD. Sometimes it says external SD card. I'll click that. And then I want to go into the www, which is where all my Rachel content is stored, and I'm good. I just press confirm once I get to this point. So I've now set the web root directory, and I remember this port is 8080. You can change it to a lot of things. If you try and change it to 80, it'll give you an error message. For those of you who know what that means, 80 is the default port. Oh wow. I guess on my tablet it won't let me change it to 80. Here on this box it will. So that's a nice little feature. We won't have to add a port when we get going. So let me go ahead with that, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to turn on the web server. And for now I don't even need to turn on the database server because that's what runs the search functionality. So we've got the web server, we're all set here, and then I'm going to go ahead and go back to my home, and this is where I need Wi-Fi access point, and you'll see these apps get loaded right onto your home screen. I'm going to name this Rachel Droid. Click next. It's got a channel of 1, and get this keyboard out of the way. I need to turn on the access point, and that's just by tapping this here. It'll turn on your access point. So on a tablet, it'll give you the IP address. On this particular device, it hasn't. I think that's because there's a lot of pre-installed apps that are conflicting, but fear not, this does work. Sometimes you have to do this once or twice. You'll see Fire Air Receiver is getting loaded, and I think that's throwing us off, but I know this works. And I'll go ahead and show you what we've got now. So Rachel is now running as a server off of this box. You can connect 25, 30 devices to this. Eventually this Wi-Fi will not sustain solid connections to too many devices. You don't want to add a router, but for most installation purposes this is a great $90 solution here. So I'm coming back over to my laptop, and I should be able to open my Wi-Fi settings here, and what we've got is somewhere on here. Alright, I don't see Rachel Droid yet, so I know this is kind of out of focus for you guys, but I'm going to give this a minute, and I'm also going to go back to my Android and go to my settings just to see what exactly is going on, to see if the Wi-Fi access point is running. Settings, more, tethering. So Rachel Droid is active. You can see this isn't open, there's no security attached to it or anything like that. So coming back to my computer, I have yet to see. Oh, I think it's because we have a bound connection because I'm doing a transfer here. Let me see if I can boot up a tablet device. This is a $45 7-inch tablet from HKC. Bought it on sale at Walmart. So this will take a few seconds to boot up. It's really a surprisingly decent device, given what it does, and you can use this just as a server. It's kind of nice just to have this, this tablet and this box can do the same thing. The box got a little better power. It's something you can stow away. This tablet does have the battery and the screen, albeit a little less powerful and a little less capable wireless. And I'm recording this on a Galaxy S4 phone, which can also do all of the same things that you're talking about. Anything with Android on it can do this exact process. So I've got the screen doing a little balancing act while I try and hold and look through. So we have no internet connection. Got Wi-Fi. And I don't know if you can see here, Rachel Droid is available. So click Rachel Droid. And so what this is doing is connecting wirelessly to my Android box. And it'll take a few seconds to connect because it's looking for the internet. And we are now connected. So I can go home, and I'm going to open Chrome, and you can be doing this on any computer, any Mac, any iPad can connect to this Droid server. You don't need to be using an Android to connect to or receive from the same device. So this is the gloriousness of a $45 tablet. We'll see if, do I want to wait? Yes. Wish I was a little more patient person in life, but it's a lesson for another day. It's out of the scope of this video. So I'm waiting for Chrome to not be crashing upon itself. And part of this is that it's synced up to my personal accounts, and this is the first time I've turned on this tablet in a few days, so it's trying to download things. This is not a good multitasking device. Despite its poor performance here, I wouldn't rule it out as a useful tablet. I am doing way more to this tablet than most people would be doing. So the web address for this box, as long as it's using its Wi-Fi access point, is the same all the time. So it's 192.168.43.1. And if you remember in the back in the beginning of the video, I was able to use port 80. So port 80 is the default port, so I don't need to add a port. And what that means is if you're doing this on your tablet and you've been told that you can't use port 80, you have to add a port, which is a colon followed by the port number, which by default was 8080. So you would need to use that to get to your Rachel if you're running this off a tablet that is not rooted, which is a technical term. But if you don't know what it means, it's not a big deal. So we fortunately were able to use this basic address, and now I have access to all of the Rachel content. It's being served off of this Android box. It can be served off of any Android. This tablet can work as a server, and now I'm showing you just the content that's on it. You will find that the search functionality is not yet enabled. The next video will go over that. It's a little more complicated process. If someone's got some good ideas about how we can build an image of this, please let me know. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.